morning, good afternoon, and good night. My name is Marcus Jr. This is Become the Podcast. How do you become anything you dream, you declare, you commit, and success is your next breath. I'm joined once again with my main man, Nate. Guys had a... Nate, you good?
Yeah.
Okay, Nate, you guys had a tough game last night. Last time we talked, you guys were going into a regional game, a regional playoff game?
Yep, regional semifinal.
Regional semifinals, and you guys won by 2, correct?
Yep, won by 2, 82 to 80.
Give us just a quick little synopsis of the game, and then who you guys got up next.
We're playing the team for the third time. They're playing very well. Their guards are playing well. One of their bigs had about 20 or so, who's going to be a very good returner. He's a freshman. They played very well. We didn't play bad at all. We played well. They shot it really well from 3, and one of their bigs kind of got going. Definitely a playoff type game. Pulled it out by 2. They hit a couple threes kind of down the stretch to cut the lead and make it a game. Kind of in the last minute. But moving on, we got Iowa Western. We've played twice already in the regional championship tomorrow night.
Yeah, it is Friday. Friday kind of crept up on me. So last time we were talking about your philosophy, your approach to skill development, and I want to continue that conversation, and I also want to take that conversation in a different direction and talk about psyche. You've had the opportunity to work with some high-level Division I players, and you've had an opportunity to work with some high-level players in general, and there's a different motor, there's a different mindset, there's a different psychology the higher you get. And just wanted to kind of explore that. But I wanted to go back and talk about training. And one of the questions that I wanted to ask you was, how do you train today's big man? And I want to add another question onto that. How many versions of the big are there? I think back in the day, you had a center and you had a power forward. Your center played primarily on the block. They might extend 15 to 17 feet. But most of their work was down low. You had to have some sort of post game, and you didn't have to, everybody didn't have to be Hakeem Olajuwon or David Robinson, but you had to have some sort of back to the basket game. Your 4-man operated a little bit in the mid-range more so. He had a post game, but he also operated in the mid-range. He was a little bit more skilled in terms of having a little bit more perimeter skill than the traditional big. But we're seeing that the 4-man is kind of, leaving the game. And then the big looks a lot different now. Now the big has a few different variations. And so I'll ask the questions again. How do you train? Let me ask you this question first. How many versions of the big man are they? And then the second thing, how do you train them?
There's kind of 3 different versions. You have your kind of old school back to the basket big man who, he's at his best when he's down at the block, working on his hook shots, up and unders, which is becoming even more and more rare. And then I think you also got a 5-man who is your more athletic, kind of rim runner, kind of down in the dunker spot, ready for catch lobs and drop offs, and doesn't post up a ton, but is sprinting into a lot of ball screens, running the court, and just kind of down on that baseline, ready for boards, drop offs when the guards penetrate. And then I think the last kind is just your typical 4-man now, who a lot of teams are playing 4 out, so it's almost a very normal 4-man, kind of opposite of how you described a little bit, or different than how you described, just out on the perimeter a lot, very, very skilled as far as being able to go into dribble handoffs, read defenders, slip out of screens, just from a skill standpoint, I think a lot higher than what it used to be, just because they're on the perimeter so much more and they got to make a lot of reads out there.
So how do you go about training bigs. Obviously, I think it's easy to train a big who has moves, or a guy who's instinctively engineered to score with his back to the basket, or even fake or catch it down in the block but face up. So it's easy to teach the guy whose expectation is this person should be able to manufacture their own buckets. But how do you then train that guy, but also train the guy who is more of a catch and finish guy? How do you create enough situations that will lead to productivity in games?
I think the biggest thing with the catch and finish guy is just him understanding, how much room he really has down there. I call it the dunker spot. It's kind of the short corner area.
Yeah.
And it's just, a couple feet off the block, kind of heels on the baseline.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what dunker spot in my mind is. So just, kind of in a workout, everything would be kind of out of that area. Whether he's sprinting into a ball screen, whether he's going to do an undercut from dunker spot to dunker spot, whether he's a circle cut to the front of the rim, whether he might step out and maybe, catch a 15-footer and face up from the dunker spot. So I think it's a lot of that, and then, also putting those movements together. So like sprint to a ball screen, roll hard to the rim, get back out to the dunker spot, another drive happens, you undercut on the drive, and now you're finishing that. So it's just a lot of, understanding the movements down there, and then it's also just a lot of different finishes, whether it's a reverse, shot fake, even 5-men, Steven Adams is a perfect example. I mean, he has a little floater push shot that, he's shooting it to, 12 to 15 feet now.
It's almost like a jumper.
Yeah, it's literally almost like a jumper, but, he's got it down packed. So
he does.
That's a shot. And then also, roll hooks, wide finishes, quick finishes, power finishes, just a lot of different finishes from that dunker spot. And understanding, when you move and then you're attacking every catch, having your momentum go to the rim, to the ball, and then just being ready to finish. A lot of bigs, they're kind of just posting, and then the guard penetrates, and they just kind of turn instead of kind of taking a step or two back towards the baseline and then attacking that catch.
You coach for Fred Hoiberg, and if you watch Chicago basketball, a lot of spacing, one guy in, like you said, guys probably at the dunker spot, all depending on who they have. I think for a while they had one of the Lopez brothers, and I think the Lopez brother that they had, he's more of a garbage guy, but as he's evolved, he's developed some game where you can kind of throw it down to him in the post, but for the most part, like to keep the floor pretty wide open. When you were with Fred in Iowa State, did they talk about duck-ins? Because if you're ducking in, that could potentially clog up the lane.
No, not much. We might have had one quick hitter that went, a quick handoff, throw it right back to the point guard, and then the big kind of just ducks in quick, trying to get a cheap bucket. But as far as just general with the offense, no, we didn't talk duckins at all. And part of it was our personnel.
Okay.
The guy we had ducking in, he was a much better catch and finish lob guy, drop-offs than ducking in and throwing it to him. So a big part of that had to do with personnel, and then like you mentioned, a big part of it too had to do with spacing. We had really good guards, and we wanted to leave that floor open for them and not clog it up.
Sure. In your own opinion, not relative to where you are now, Indian Hills or Iowa State, but how do you feel about the duck in? Do you, like, if you were running a program, I feel like I want everybody on my team to be able to duck in, especially if I got guards who have post instincts, or they're not afraid to post, so they want to learn how to score on the block. Or if I had bigs, especially if I have a big who has a little bit of body. So if you're dealing with somebody who doesn't quite have the body, quite have the frame for it, then obviously you want to stay away from the duck ends. But if I got a guy who got some size on him, I like the duck end because, like you said, I can now turn this guy who doesn't have a lot of moves, but I can put him in position to score some buckets outside of just catching finishes. So now he can feel like we may be running plays for him. He can feel like he's a part of the offense to some degree, where he's now getting an opportunity to do his own thing. So I want to teach that duck end so I can get like some cheap buckets, maybe get some fouls, and just give that person a few more options to duck in. How do you feel about teaching duck ends? Would it be a part of your post scoring bag, if you will?
I think it would. It just all depending on personnel.
Okay.
I think that would be my biggest thing is if, is ducking in good for that player specifically?
Yeah.
And who knows? I mean, your starting five might be a duck-in guy, and the guy you bring off the bench might not be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, like, even, if, quote-unquote, in my program, if I was running a program and, your five men, your starting could duck in, and your guy off the bench couldn't, you kind of have to tweak some things to do that. But I think that's, I wouldn't have the guy who's, maybe 6'8", 210, 215, trying to duck in against, guys that are 6'8", 250.
Yeah.
So I think it just all kind of on personnel, who you got, how good is that person good at ducking in and scoring with angles, or they're better, catching and, catching their dunker spot and trying to finish that way. So I think it's all kind of just personnel related.
Yeah. So you kind of talked about this. We already kind of talked about this, but I just want to make sure that we didn't miss anything. So one of my questions were, how do you train DeMarcus Cousins versus how do you train DeAndre Jordan? And I think you kind of talked about training DeAndre Jordan, and not those players specific, but their comps. If DeMarcus Cousins is on the high end in terms of offensive skill and ability, and here's a guy who's revolutionized. Well, not revolutionized, but I guess in a sense he might be in the process of revolutionizing the center position. He's definitely the modern center who can now step outside all the way on the three and be a threat basically from underneath the basket, below the free throw line to above the free throw line. And then the other end of that spectrum is DeAndre Jordan. I would think he's a high-end catch and finish guy, right? And then Marcus Cousins is a high-end post player. So you kind of talked about all the different things you got to do for DeAndre Jordan. And I know this is a loaded question, so just do your best. But how do you train DeMarcus Cousins? Like what are some of the, I guess, go-to skills that you feel like a comp to DeMarcus Cousins has to have in order to maximize their ability as a modern post?
I think definitely one of the main spots was that the 5-man or even the 4-man who are skilled and can step out and not really back to basket guys. I think one of the big areas is just that trail spots. Mm-hmm. And being able to operate from top of the key, slot to slot, all in that area as far as making shots, making passes, making perimeter moves, and understanding defense and where guys are from the slot to slot area and up in the top of the key, because they are trailing a lot. I mean, even in the NBA, they're going 5 out, and the trail man is their 5-man, and they're hitting him at the top of the key, mm-hmm. and then doing, there's a ton of that 5 out, big has the ball up top, set wide pin downs, and going into dribble handoffs. So I think, being able to operate up top is key. Being able to go into dribble handoffs and read them and understand when you got to keep it, when you hand it off, mm-hmm. how you roll out of it, how you can pop out of it, and then definitely kind of the mid-range, probably a couple feet outside the elbow area.
Yeah,
would be key for those guys as well.
So let's switch gears. So you've had an opportunity to work with some very, very motivated basketball players that played on Division I level and some guys that have played pro ball. And so one of the things that I want to talk about is psyche. And we often have a lot of conversations about psyche, whether we're talking about somebody like Mike, Kobe, or or a player that I might have a player on a lower level, at high school, but his psyche is there or psyche isn't there. And then you've again had opportunities to work with players on a higher level. And so you told me one time you were working with George Niang from Iowa State, who is now in the G League with the Pacers G League team, right?
Utah Jazz.
Oh, Utah Jazz. But he started off with the Pacers G League.
So he was with he got drafted by the Pacers, and then was up and down with them for a year, and then he started this year with Golden State Warriors G League team.
Okay.
And then about 2 months ago, signed with the Utah Jazz, Salt Lake City G League team, and he's been up and down as well he's been up with the Utah Jazz a couple times.
Okay.
Playing for their G League team as well.
Okay. So you told me one time, I think is when I went down there to visit you, and I got a chance to see you. I just got a chance to see all these guys work out. I got a chance to see all these guys, make shots and open gym and all of that, because obviously it was an off season. And you were telling me how he attacked workouts, and he attacked workouts a little bit different than some of the other guys. Now, some of the other guys worked incredibly hard, but George just attacked workouts a little bit different. Like the workout was the game, and then there were all these small games within that workout that he was attacking. So just talk about his approach to working out.
It was definitely he looked at it as a business,
mm-hmm.
and he looked at it as, his craft, and kind of every day the mindset of mastering his craft and studying his craft, and, attacking it like, I'm trying to master this, and it's a business rather than, shoot, it's an hour workout, let me try to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was definitely he understood the business side of it, and he understood himself, understanding that he's 6'8", is the greatest athlete, super smart, a little undersized for his position. He understood all of that about him,
mm-hmm.
and knew that for him to make it, he had to have that extra gear, that extra edge, the extra kind of psyche to the way he approached everything.
Yeah. There's a line you just said that he knew who he was. And that's a part of it. And I think for you to be a killer, there's still a strong necessity for you to understand who you are, understand your strengths and your limitations. And I think people want to be killers, but they don't want to do the internal inventory first and kind of figure out what's in my bag. What do I have going for me? What do I have working against me? And then kind of go on from there. And I think that's a big piece of the psyche, because anybody can develop the psyche. Anybody can develop it. You know what I'm saying? You can condition yourself to think a certain way and work a certain way, especially if you're in your lane. You know what I'm saying? Whether that is basketball, whether that is sport, whether that is non-sport. But I think one of the key things that you just said is knowledge of self and then perfection. I got to figure out who I am. I got to figure out what I bring to the table, and then I got to master it. And so I want to ask you just some not rapid fire questions, but some questions to just get a better feel for high level players, high level motor, and how they kind of deal with certain situations. So how would he deal with criticism, constructive criticism, or even kind of the coach going after him, or maybe you going after him? How would he deal with that with a high level motor and psyche?
He would challenge it in a respectful way.
Mm-hmm.
I talked a little bit the last time we were on about, when I train guys, I always try to tell them the why.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Why you're doing it, why you're doing it this way, why this will work. And George is a prime example of that. You know, why am I doing this? Isn't the defender coming from this way?
Yeah.
You know, won't he be coming this way? I mean, if that's a shooter, he's not helping off, so I'm good to go this way. You know, but that's just, you know, his very, very high IQ, very, you know, intelligent, was always thinking about the game. So, you know, he would handle criticism kind of challenging it, but not in a disrespectful way, if that makes sense. Like, it's not, he's not saying, F you, dude, you're wrong.
Yeah.
He just wants to know why you're thinking like that.
Do you think that's a common trait?
Yes. Because I think at that level, you know, the really high level basketball players, they always want to master it, and they always want to know, to master it, they got to know why they're doing it and why this is going to work. So I think it is a common trait.
How do they deal? How do the high level players that you've worked with? How do they deal with fatigue?
Fight right through it. I mean, it's really a mental, you know, and that was a big thing in the workouts with George is, you know, him getting in the best shape of his life because he was always kind of a chubby kid.
Yeah.
And he knew it. You know,
yeah.
And like it goes back to, you know, he went on a diet. Really watched what he ate. You know, I think it was going into his junior year. You know, shed about 20 or 30 pounds probably, and really got in really good shape.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, that point when he hit fatigue got further and further away, the better he got in shape. But you know, just kind of always going back to their workouts and always going back to they've done this a million times. You know, when they got tired, like, I know what I'm doing, I know how I got to do it, and I know that I can do it because I've done it tons and tons of times.
How would, and this is a loaded question again, how do high-level motor players go about developing new skills? So let's say, for instance, you want to show him a new skill or a new progression to an old move. And let's say, for instance, it just doesn't feel right. Maybe it looks good. Maybe they're making shots, but to them, it just doesn't feel right. Something hasn't clicked for them that they feel comfortable and confident about. So how are they, you know, would there be times when these guys would say, like, we're not going to the next drill. I want to stay right here. And I want to do this drill until I get it. And then, so how long, what are some of the stories that you have about those guys developing new skills and kind of like obsessing over them until they understand it and get it? And then how quickly do those guys implement it in a game setting? Do they need to be coached up? Do they need to be told to do it? Or is it like a slow progression before they can really start using that skill in game time situations?
Yeah. So, I mean, there was a lot of times, you know, especially with a guy like George, where, you know, we're working on a new shot, a new move, something like that, and you can't tell him, hey, we're only doing 10 reps of this and moving on. Like you said, it's a hold on now. Like, you want me to do this move? All right, like let's you know, I want to be comfortable doing it. I want to, you know, I want to perfect it, and that's the thing. I think for every guy's a little different. His game's a little different. The way he moves is a little different. So, you know, you might have to tweak a little move here and there, you know, depending on your guy. You know, like for George, he wasn't, you know, he doesn't really shoot one dribble pull-ups because he's not the most athletic dude. So, you know, for him, like, we kind of implemented like the 1 foot fadeaway, you know, as a counter to his spin move, because he was really good at going left and then coming back, spinning, going to his right hand hook. So, and you know, the other big would always step up and try to challenge that. So he struggled a little bit with that, you know, towards the end of his middle of his junior year, and that's when we kind of put in, you know, his like 1 foot fall away. And I mean, we had workouts where we were doing that for 80-90% of the workout. I mean, just from different spots, different moves, you know, different ways getting into it.
Yeah.
And just really, really, like, you know, hammering that out, really trying to master that one shot. And, you know, towards the end of his junior year, he hit a couple big-time shots where he drove it left, turned and spun and went right into a 1 foot fall away, and the 5 man was just standing there waiting for his hook, and it was nowhere to be seen.
Yeah. What? So tell me about competitive nature. You told me a story about one of your players that they would get so competitive, and I know this is a psychological thing because the player that you were talking to me about, I know is a good dude. I talked to him, but you were talking about this one player that they would go so hard that they like, if a guy came from a situation where he didn't have the best support, maybe not a great social economic background, neighborhood, that he would say like, I go hard and you come from, I go hard and you don't go hard, you don't go nearly as hard as me, but you come from like drugs and this poor neighborhood, you should be going like 10 times harder than me, so you don't have to ever go back to that. But because you don't put this work in, that's where you're going to end up. And so this guy was kind of keeping it 100 with the person in a real way. But if you just listen to that, you might say, man, that's kind of deep. So I know that when you talk about psyche, sometimes a guy, if you gotta go there, he'll go there to win the psychological advantage over his opponent. So talk about some of the things that you've seen in terms of the psychological warfare of trash talking, or so I know some guys are ready to fight at the drop of a dime. Like, talk about that part of the psyche, I guess the mental warfare that goes into being competitive.
Yeah. And I think it all kind of goes back to, it's a business.
Mm-hmm.
Like at the end of the day, like we're talking money, and everyone's trying to get it. So the trash talking, getting that edge. I mean, I've seen best friends, roommates for 4 years. All that. Get very, very personal. And of course, a roommate in college probably knows almost everything about your life. If you're with them all the time. So I've seen that. I've seen, like you said, really good dudes get really, really dark and evil just to get that advantage. Because that's just the competitive nature of it.
And I think, go ahead.
Go ahead. And
I think it's commonplace. I think if you want to be really, really competitive, I don't know. Now again, I don't know because I haven't worked with that level of player. Like I haven't worked with players where money was on the line. Like I work with players where they want to go overseas, but I've not worked with players that are so close to the money that they don't even think about getting a regular job. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Their whole thing is, I'm going to either go league or I'm going to have a cup of coffee in the league, and that cup of coffee is going to translate into a 6-figure salary somewhere overseas. So I've never even gotten close. But would you say that that's very, very commonplace? If you're that close to it, the dark side comes out more times than not.
100%. It's not even. It's not even something that you talk about or train.
Yeah.
It's just a standard. If they're at that level and they have any chance of succeeding at that level, it's just in them. They got that already. Kind of like going hard in workouts.
Yeah.
If we're having to really, really coach and teach effort and working hard, I don't know if this is really for you.
Sure.
In the long haul.
Sure. What the last question, what pro stories do you have as it relates to psyche, intensity, dark side that you've kind of come across with doing all your training and just kind of being in that space where you're dealing with high level players?
The one workout that really stands out, probably 5 years ago maybe, guy Chris Babb, who played at Iowa State, played in the G League with the Maine Red Claws for a little bit, was very good there, and then was overseas at the time. I think he might have been getting ready for Summer League. This was like spring or summer. He came out to Iowa State, and we were talking. He wanted to get a workout in, and we were talking about what he wanted to do. And he said, man, corner threes. And for about an hour, we worked on only corner threes. He shot corner threes and free throws. And, the first half was all kind of movements into the corner threes, whether that's a sprint, a slide, a back pedal, kind of coming from under the rim, sprinting out to the corner, maybe setting a cross screen and then a down screen and then getting to the corner, just different actions getting to the corner. But it was all corner shots. And then the second half was all mental. And it was all make 7 in a row, sprint to the other corner, make 6 in a row, sprint back to the corner, make 5 in a row, make 20 out of 22, make, 10 out of 11. It was all mental stuff. And it was just corner. And I'll never forget this. About 5 passes into the workout, he had me reposition where I was on the court passing him the ball. And I'll never forget that because it's, I might have been at the elbow just passing it. And, at the pro level, the court's a lot more spaced out. So he wanted me way out by NBA 3, kind of throwing it straight down to the corner.
Yeah.
Because, that's majority of his shots are coming on a quick swing from way out there straight down.
Yeah.
So just never forget just the details he had in that. The details in his footwork, how he got into every shot, how he never stepped out of bounds, how he was so detailed about where the pass was coming from.
Yeah.
So that's always been, I always kind of kept that and always thought about that. Even if we were just, getting some shots up late at night, I always thought about where the pass would be coming from for that specific person.
I hear there's 2 stories that I always tell young guys, and it's about Kobe. And this is one story that I read, I think in Sports Illustrated, either Sports Illustrated or ESPN the magazine. I think it was ESPN the magazine when he had tore his Achilles, and it said he was picking up marbles with his toes and putting it into a jar. And he would do this for, I don't want to say hours. I don't make it seem like he's some like just machine, but he would do that forever. And he said he wouldn't get bored because he knew that was a part of the process. He knew that in order for him to be explosive, to rely on this thing, he had to, hold on 1 second. You about to leave? Okay. Oh, my wife, Nate, say hi to Sarah.
Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Nate.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You can talk. Just talk.
I
It's
didn't know
okay.
if you're recording.
I am recording, but it's okay.
Okay. I had an appointment to take the van in this morning, but I don't know how that would mess up like your plans. Do you want me to just cancel it and figure it out?
Because once Claire gets here, I'm leaving.
For good?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Love you.
You were part of the podcast.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Hopefully all good things.
No, all good things. All right. So he was talking about how he would put these marbles into this jar, and he just wouldn't get bored because he understood that this was a part of him being able to pivot, being able to jump, land, be explosive, being able to turn, twist, so on and so forth. And then I heard this other thing about him, how he worked on a move. And he would work on a move, let's say, I don't know, let's say his dream shake, right? And he would work on his dream shake. That would be the primary part of his workout. So yeah, he probably works on his ball handling. He probably works on his dribbling, his passing, he probably has some sort of like set of non-negotiable skills that he has to work on every single time he comes to the workout. But he would say the bulk of his workout would be geared toward the dream shake. Especially when he was working with Hakeem Olajuwon, he would work on his dream shake, and that would be like the whole workout. That would be 80% of the workout, and he would probably do it from like one block. And just like you were saying, he works on different ways to get into it. So that's kind of how he would change it up. It's like, okay, I'll dribble drive into the dream shake, or I'll catch and get into the dream shake this way or that way, or so on and so forth. But he would do that until. So like if it took him a week to get it right, he'd do it for a week. If it took him 2 weeks to get it right, he'd do it. And then once he got it down, he then started saying, okay, I want to play one-on-one. Now, I don't know who he would play one-on-one with. I don't know if it would be like the coaches, the drill, the skill coaches, or if he would get players to play one-on-one with him. But he would do that. And then he would even say, all right, during one-on-one games, that's all he would work on. I even was listening to an interview with somebody who was able to go into all of those, what's his name? Is it Berkeley? The skills guy? Okay, Berkeley. And he said he's a pastor, but somehow he's really good friends with a lot of NBA guys. And he got a chance to go into one of those open gyms. And he said, Melo would say something like, all I'm working on today is my mid-range game. That's it. So he letting everybody know, I'm not trying to go to the cup. I'm not trying to really post up like that. I'll take the open shots if they're available. You know what I'm saying? If I go on a fast break, then I'm not going to like shoot a mid-range jumper. But in half-court situations, like that's all I'm working on is that. And so I heard that Kobe Bryant would do the same thing. Like when they got a chance to play in competition, then he will only work on his dream shake. And I would tell guys, you got to be able to do that move when everybody in the gym knows it's coming. Everybody in the gym has to know it's coming, and you got to be able to get it off and shoot it at a high clip. That's when you have a move. But it goes back to what you were saying with this young man Bab, who all he focused on was corner threes. And you got to know I'm shooting this corner three, and you can run out here as hard as you want, and it won't matter. I'm gonna either get it off. I'm gonna get it off. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Now making it is one thing, but then it's the concentration level. It's the resistance to getting bored that I think makes those guys a little different. Like you said, in the end, like George, like nah, I'm working on this move, and I'm gonna keep doing it, and we're not doing nothing else because I am so fascinated and so obsessed with this one concept that nothing else matters. And, nothing else matters.
Yep. And it goes back to putting a lot of emphasis on the details and putting a lot of emphasis on mastering it and, doing it. Bab wanted to, have such a good feel on the court where he didn't really have to look down at his feet. He could start at the block and know just by feel, was he out of bounds, was he in bounds, was he behind the three? All of that, so it's and it definitely goes back to, are you getting bored with it, or, are you so obsessed with it that you're going to do it until you can't do it wrong? Yeah.
We say don't do it till you get it right, and do it till you can't get it wrong. Mm-hmm. Like I can't even if I want it. They're like, and I'm gonna leave with this, but when Kevin Durant was doing his movie, I forget what it was called, but Kevin Durant was doing a movie, and in the movie he lost his powers, and so he said that they would have him shoot, and in order for he couldn't miss, and he said, man, you know how long I've been working on my shot to not miss? Now you're trying to get me to miss, and he said they like just miss, so he would miss, but his form would look weird, like he'd have to like almost shoot in an his form. He would have to compromise his form, but then it was like, well, now it looks like you're missing because your form isn't the same. And he was like, bro, to miss with my form on purpose, it doesn't even like mentally compute. I can't even I can't even process that concept. And that's where we talk about don't do it till you get it right, do it till you can't get it wrong. Like, fam, I don't even know how to get this. I don't even know how to mess this up.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that's good stuff, bro. I'm gonna let you go. I'll be calling you, and we'll figure out our next topic. But you were right. you know, we on 40 minutes, and you was like, man, Marv, like this could go a minute. Talking about the bigs, you said that could be its own podcast. And I think once we got to the bigs, we were probably about 20-25 minutes in, and then the psychological stuff took us almost to the 45-minute mark. But we'll get back after it. We'll probably just try to do something ASAP after the game Saturday. Talk about that a little bit, and just just talk about the psychological process, the psyche of the team. And how the psyche, and also the psyche of the coaches. I think it'd be interesting to talk about the psyche of coaches in those situations. We talk a lot about the players, but we don't probably give much thought to the psyche of the coaches in those situations, what they have to deal with managing all these personalities, and you're not just coaching for yourself, you're coaching for your coaching staff to make sure that they have jobs as well. So there's some pressure on the coach that probably doesn't get talked about quite often. So we'll have to wrap, man.
Sounds good.
Hey, thanks a lot. Yo, absolutely, man. Thanks. I mean, you are a part of the podcast. So yeah, I'm happy that you find the time to rap with me, man. But I'll be talking to you soon, man. Take care and good luck tomorrow night.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.
Yep. All right, so that's it, man. We're done. I'll be talking to Nate soon, and then come up with some more content moving forward. So finish this thing off. Greatness lives on the edge of death. I am not afraid to die. I will fight for my dreams. I will celebrate my dreams, and I will die for my dreams. Thoughts are things, and everything starts off as a thought first and springs from a place of mindfulness and clarity. My name is Marv Fox Jr. Go, Indian Hills, go. And in order to be great, you have to resist the temptation of allowing yourself to succumb to boredom. You cannot get bored if you want to be great. You cannot be bored if you want to develop a high-level motor and psyche. So with that being said, y'all take care. Marv Fox Jr. Done.